Chairman, and my question is for Mr. Von Spakovsky. Representative Collins suggested several alternative names to this act, and I would say this bill should be calling Fleecing the People Act. It contains a provision where federal tax dollars from hardworking, middle-class families and single mothers would be lining the pockets of politicians to pay for nasty TV ads and robocalls and paying for politicians' personal child care and health care. Under this bill, it's estimated that at least $3.9 billion of taxpayer dollars would line the pockets of House congressional candidates based on estimates from Bloomberg, and an estimated $6.25 billion would line the pockets of presidential candidates based on the formula in this bill and the 2016 election, for a total of $10.1 billion of taxpayer dollars. To me, this is an outrageous use of taxpayer dollars. You know, Democrats recently, we were in a battle, they blocked funding for a border fence. In Arizona, border security is very important. Now, under this bill, they want to use taxpayer dollars to line the pockets of politicians. To me, it appears they would rather secure their own election than secure our borders in our nation. My question to you is, do you believe this is a good use of taxpayer dollars, sir?
I don't, and I would also say it's unconstitutional. The reason being that, as you know, Americans have associational rights that have been upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court, very important associational rights, and upheld by very important Supreme Court decisions. And forcing taxpayers to provide taxpayer money for candidates running for office, particularly candidates who they don't support and whose ideas they don't like, I think violates basic associational rights. That's very different than taxes being used for government programs and government budgets. And that's why you contrast this with the public funding program that is in place. I was a commissioner for 2 years on the Federal Election Commission. We administered the public funding program, for example, that provides campaign funds for the nominees of the political parties, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, during the general election if they agreed to give up private fundraising. That money is funded not through tax dollars, it is funded through voluntary contributions by Americans. You know, there's a checkbox on their tax returns where they can agree to contribute to it. That is perfectly constitutional because you are not forcing Americans to provide political contributions to candidates that they do not support. But I think using taxpayer dollars for that same kind of program, to me, is clearly unconstitutional.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Chair and Mr. Adams, do you have any responses to any of the previous testimony that you have heard today?
Well, look, there's a lot of ideas that people have about elections. Having an omnibus federal bill to fix everything is not the sort of thing that the Constitution envisions. I mean, to mandate independent redistricting commissions, for example, when you have states that have never had a redistricting lawsuit, and to say that somehow the Civil War amendments and the long history of Jim Crow allows Congress to impose an independent redistricting commission on Utah really pushes the outer limits of the Constitution.
Thank you. I yield my time back.